What if a humble nurse, working tirelessly to support her ailing mother, found herself facing scrutiny from the very institution she devoted her life to? Lily Raves, an intern at a bustling city hospital, had always been the one to help others, but when whispers of favoritism and financial aid began to swirl around her, she became the target of suspicion. As the hospital's administration called her in for questioning, the weight of her struggles felt heavier than ever. But just when it seemed all was lost, a powerful ally stepped forward, ready to unveil the truth and challenge the very system that sought to undermine her. On a rainy morning, a humble girl named Lily, an intern nurse with tired eyes but a kind heart, stood near the back door of a crowded city bus. She carefully balanced her worn purse and a small tote filled with her medical textbooks. Lily was accustomed to this daily hustle, waking up before dawn to review notes for her certification exam and taking the first bus across town to reach the hospital where she was completing her internship. Despite her exhaustion, she never failed to notice the small struggles of those around her. The elderly woman coughing into her handkerchief, the single mother juggling a toddler and groceries, and the teenage boy nodding off from lack of sleep. At just 19 years old, Lily had learned to read the silent battles of others, which perhaps influenced her choice to pursue nursing, a profession dedicated to caring for those in need, no matter how large or small the problem seemed. However, today felt different. There was an unusual tension in the air. The bus rattled along its usual route, and the engines sputtered as if they might give out at any moment. People were crammed shoulder to shoulder, the smell of hot brakes and city smog mixing with the faint perfume of cologne and the tang of cheap coffee. Lily clutched her small coin purse tightly, calculating whether she had enough for both her bus fare and a simple lunch later. Next to her, an older man rummaged through his pockets, searching for exact change. She offered him a gentle smile as he finally found the right coins. Suddenly, at the next stop, a tall figure climbed aboard, his head tilted down as if embarrassed. He was dressed in slightly wrinkled office attire, but his jacket looked more expensive than most. He slid a hand into his trouser pocket, then into his other pocket, and froze. The man's gaze fell upon the driver, who was already eyeing him suspiciously. "Fare, please," the bus driver said in his usual monotone. The man patted his chest pockets, then reached inside a sleek leather briefcase that looked completely out of place on this aging bus. He pulled out nothing but a pen and gave a strained, apologetic chuckle. "I'm sorry, I must have forgotten my wallet. Please, if you just let me ride a few stops." He stopped talking as he noticed the irritated stares around him. Passengers had little patience for someone who couldn't pay, especially during rush hour. Some muttered under their breath, accusing him of trying to get a free ride. The bus driver folded his arms, ready to kick him out. But before the situation could escalate, Lily stepped forward, her heart pounding. She wasn't sure why she felt compelled to help. Perhaps it was the desperation in his voice or the subtle tremor in his posture. "I can come." She gave Richard a shy nod goodbye and hopped off, rushing to clock in for her shift. She didn't notice how Richard watched her from the window, his expression unreadable as the bus pulled away. Inside the bustling corridors of the hospital, Lily quickly immersed herself in her duties. As an intern, she handled smaller tasks, checking vital signs, updating charts, assisting in the triage area. Although her salary was almost negligible, she felt a sense of satisfaction every time she calmed a frightened patient or comforted a worried family member. She aspired to pass her final exam and become a registered nurse, a dream she had cherished since childhood. The hospital environment was like a second home, despite the endless wave of tasks and the emotional toll that came with seeing people in pain. During a short break, Lily texted her mother to check how she was feeling today. Her mother's health had been declining steadily over the past year, with medical bills stacking up higher than they could manage. Determined to pay them off, Lily took on every extra shift possible, rarely buying new clothes or small luxuries for herself. Her mother insisted that Lily keep some money for her own needs, but Lily always resisted. Nothing was more important than her mother's well-being. As Lily ended her shift late in the afternoon, her phone buzzed with a text from her landlord. The rent was due in 2 days. Biting her lip, Her heart pounded at the thought of her mother's medication costs. It would be a close call this month. She wondered if she should sell her old phone or skip meals again to make ends meet. Exhaustion weighed on her as she walked toward the hospital exit. Just as Lily reached the glass doors, a well-dressed man stepped aside, holding them open for her. Surprised by the sudden gesture, she looked up and froze. There stood Richard, the same man from the bus, but now in a sleek, tailored suit that made him look every bit like a corporate executive. "Why are you here?" Lily asked, blinking in confusion. He offered a disarming smile. "I'm looking for someone. Actually, a kind person who paid my fare this morning." "That was you?" Lily managed, still startled. Was this some kind of coincidence? Had he truly come all this way to repay a simple bus fare? Richard nodded, placing a gentle hand in the pocket of his suit trousers. "I told you I'd pay you back." His gaze wandered around the hospital lobby, taking in the decor, the hurried staff, and the lines of patients waiting for care. He seemed unaccustomed to the environment, yet oddly comfortable speaking to Lily. "It's not necessary," Lily insisted, feeling a twinge of embarrassment. "I just helped you get to where you needed to go." Richard hesitated, then reached into his jacket, pulling out a sleek wallet. "If you won't let me reimburse you," he said slowly, "maybe there's another way I can show my appreciation." Lily stared, unable to fathom what else he might offer her. Money? She'd never felt right accepting more than she needed from a total stranger. Before either of them could say more, a nurse rushed by, calling Lily's name. They were short-staffed in the children's ward, and Lily's help was needed ASAP. Apologizing to Richard, Lily hurried back inside. He watched her go, a flicker of genuine concern crossing his face, and without another word, he slipped out of the lobby, leaving Lily to her duties and her confusion. As the afternoon wore on, Lily returned home to her modest apartment on the edge of the city. The living room light was dim, revealing piles of unopened envelopes, bills, medical statements, and overdue notices. Her mother lay resting on the couch, too weak to move much these days. Lily checked her mother's temperature, then quietly heated some leftover soup for dinner. Despite the worry gnawing at her, she maintained a gentle smile, assuring her mother that everything was well. At midnight, Lily lay on her thin mattress, replaying the day's events in her mind. The odd encounter with Richard felt surreal, especially after discovering his polished, affluent demeanor. Who was he really? A professional from some big corporate world, or merely a man who forgot his wallet and happened to own an expensive suit? She couldn't quite explain why she believed there was more to their interaction. Perhaps it was the way he looked at her in the hospital corridor, as if he were observing everything for the first time, or that he carried secrets he couldn't yet share. Lily shrugged off her unease. People came and went in her life. Her only constant was her mother's condition and the relentless tide of medical bills. It was best not to dwell on a stranger's mysterious appearance. Yet, as the night deepened, she struggled to sleep. A small part of her hoped, or perhaps feared, that Richard would cross her path again. Another part reminded her that she had real problems to solve: rent, medications, and exam fees. Her life offered no space for daydreams about strangers on the bus. The morning brought a familiar routine. Lily jolted awake at 5 a.m., dragging herself from a shallow sleep. Her pulse quickened as she remembered the bills and her mother's medications. She quickly prepared a simple breakfast of 2 eggs and a slice of bread, then checked on her mother, who was still asleep on the couch, covered with layers of blankets. Her mother's breathing sounded shallow but steady. Lily adjusted the pillows and kissed her mother on the forehead, feeling the familiar knot of anxiety return. The hospital nurses had advised her that, with her mother's worsening condition, Lily might soon need to consider more specialized care or aggressive treatments, options that required resources she simply didn't have. Despite her constant worries, Lily tried to keep her spirits up. She brushed her hair into a neat ponytail, slipped into her scuffed white sneakers, and hurried out the door to catch her usual bus. As always, she clutched her coin purse tightly, replaying mental reminders: pay rent by Thursday, pick up medication refills tomorrow, study after her evening shift. The narrow path of her life left little room for error. The bus ride was uneventful today. There was no sign of Richard. A strange pang of disappointment hit her at that realization. She berated herself for being silly. After all, Richard was just a stranger who had momentarily stepped into her life. Surely he had no reason to ride the bus again, especially if he was as affluent as his suit suggested. Besides, Lily had her own problems to solve and no time for daydreams. Upon arrival at the hospital, Lily was already thinking about how to manage her lunch money. A twinge of guilt formed when she passed by the cafeteria where the comforting aroma of fresh coffee and pastries wafted through the air. She forced herself to keep walking, deciding to save her coins for her mother's dinner. Stepping into the staff locker room, she slipped on a clean pair of scrubs and quickly began her morning rounds. "Morning, Lily," greeted Marie, a senior nurse, as they crossed paths. "Dr. Willis is looking for you in Ward B. Something about checking vitals on a new patient." Lily thanked her, hustling off with her stethoscope slung around her neck. Even though she was just an intern, the doctors and nurses had already come to trust her reliability. She was meticulous and gentle, always willing to help at a moment's notice. Ward B was located at the far end of the hospital, past the busier emergency section. The hallway smelled faintly of antiseptic and old paint. Lily double-checked each door number until she reached the newest patient's room. She hesitated slightly at the door. There was something about the hush in that corridor that made her uneasy. Inside, she found a young woman recovering from appendicitis. Lily offered a comforting smile, asked how she was feeling, and proceeded to measure her blood pressure and temperature. The patient thanked her in a raspy voice. In moments like this, Lily was reminded exactly why she had chosen this path. Small acts of compassion could soothe so many fears. At the nurse's station, Lily updated the patient's chart and leaned over to ask another intern about the scarcity of supplies. "Did they restock the surgical kits yet?" she whispered. The other intern shook her head glumly. Budget cuts, overwork, and hospital shortages were topics they discussed almost daily. "That new family in room 212. They don't speak English well," said a nurse at the station. "Could you help them with paperwork? I know you've got that gentle touch." Lily nodded, collecting a stack of forms and heading toward the family's room. On her way, she glanced out a window, wishing she had time to stand in a patch of sunlight for just a few minutes. But her life never slowed down. After assisting the family with their forms and easing their anxieties, Lily headed back toward the main lobby. Suddenly, she heard a voice calling her name from behind. Turning, she was startled to see Richard, the same tall man from the bus. He wore a simple blue-collared shirt and gray trousers, far from the extravagant suit of yesterday. Yet he still looked undeniably polished, as if even casual wear had been tailored to fit him perfectly. "Hi," Lily said, blinking. "You're back." His smile was genuine. "I had a meeting at the hospital administration office," he replied, gesturing vaguely down the hall. "I'm happy I ran into you. I was hoping I could talk to you for a minute." His eyes flicked to her ID badge, which read, Lily Reyes, intern. She felt self-conscious about how worn the plastic looked. "Sure," Lily managed, trying not to appear flustered. She noticed a few passing nurses whispering and casting curious glances. They rarely saw a visitor so intent on speaking to an intern like her. She quickly led him into a nearby waiting lounge, which was quieter than the main corridor. Sitting down on a plastic chair, she folded her hands in her lap. "Richard," he said, his tone hushed. "I never properly thanked you for paying my fare, and I realize I caught you off guard yesterday when I showed up." He paused, as if weighing how much to say. "The truth is, I came here not just to repay you, but to see how I could return the kindness you showed me." Lily bit her lip. "It was just bus fare," she insisted. "I promise it wasn't a big deal. I help people all the time." He gave a small laugh, though his eyes were gentle. "Right? But this isn't about the money. I was in a situation that morning, trying to learn more about the everyday struggles people face. Well, it's complicated." He stopped, looking slightly embarrassed. "Let's just say I rarely ride the bus or walk the city streets, but I decided to do it because I've been missing something important." Lily tilted her head, unsure how to respond. She wondered if he was some journalist doing an expose or perhaps a visiting philanthropist, but even that didn't quite fit. "Missing something?" He nodded, but then abruptly changed course. "Tell me, how is your day going? How's your schedule? You look exhausted." She blinked, surprised by his concern. Nobody outside her immediate circle ever asked how she felt. The question alone seemed to pierce her composure. I'm all right, she answered too quickly. Work is busy, that's all. Hospitals never sleep. Richard seemed to study her, as if noticing the dark shadows under her eyes and the slump in her shoulders. Yes, I can imagine. You do a lot for others. He paused. Could we meet for a coffee or even just a short break sometime after your shift? I'm not trying to pry, but I'd like to hear more about what you do, and maybe there's some way. She stood up abruptly, remembering her tasks. I'm sorry. I have to return to the ward right now. There's a child who needs a follow-up. Maybe some other time? Richard rose too, not wanting to push. Of course, I understand. May I give you my phone number if you ever... He stopped, noticing Lily's uncertain expression. She hesitated, conflicted. She didn't want to be rude, but she also felt uneasy accepting any more help, especially if it involved personal contact. Her phone's screen was cracked, and she had limited calling minutes. Sighing inwardly, she realized that refusing would appear ungrateful. All right, she whispered. He pulled a small card from his pocket. It was unmarked except for a handwritten number. Call me if you need anything, he said, handing it to her, or even if you just want to talk. Lily took it, noticing how the card was made of premium cardstock, the edges embossed. She felt out of place, but managed a quick nod before hurrying back toward Ward B. As she walked away, the same question rang in her mind. Who is Richard really? That afternoon, between tasks, Lily peeked at the phone number she had stuffed into her pocket without glancing at the details. To her surprise, it bore a faint insignia she recognized from local news segments, a stylized C with a diagonal slash. It was the emblem of Collins Enterprises, one of the most prominent conglomerates in the region, known for real estate, tech investments, and philanthropic initiatives. Lily's heart skipped a beat. Was Richard an employee there? Perhaps that explained his polished demeanor. She felt a flash of embarrassment recalling how she had treated him like an ordinary acquaintance. Then she reasoned that he had boarded a bus with no wallet, wearing simple clothes. He couldn't be anyone too high-ranking in that giant company, right? Unsure what to think, Lily slipped the card back into her pocket. She had no intention of calling him anyway. Even if he was some upper-level manager, why should she involve herself in his affairs? Her mother's health was her sole priority. When her shift ended, Lily felt her stomach clench with hunger. She headed to the cafeteria with the few coins she had, barely enough for a small sandwich. She unwrapped the bread slowly, savoring each bite. Suddenly, her phone lit up with a text from her landlord, reminding her again about rent day. Lily swallowed hard and sipped her water. She wondered if she could ask the hospital for an advance on her stipend, but the administrative staff rarely granted exceptions. Once she finished her meager dinner, Lily gathered her things and trudged outside into the early evening light. She was halfway to the bus stop when a sleek black luxury car pulled up beside her. The tinted window slid down, and in the driver's seat sat a man about her age, wearing a crisp chauffeur uniform. "Excuse me, miss," he said politely. "Are you Lily Reyes?" She nearly dropped her tote bag. "Yes," she answered warily. The driver offered a professional smile. "I'm here on behalf of Mr. Richard Collins. He'd like to offer you a ride home." Lily's heart hammered. Richard Collins, the name she recognized from the news, was the CEO known for transforming his family's company into a powerhouse. Suddenly, everything made sense. The quiet confidence, the impeccable suits, the random kindness. Lily was stunned. The man she had paid a bus fare for was Richard Collins, the CEO himself. But why on earth would a CEO dress like an ordinary office worker and ride a public bus? None of it lined up in her mind. She quickly shook her head, stepping back. "That's very kind, but I can't accept. Please tell Mr. Collins I appreciate the thought, but it's really not necessary." The driver hesitated. "He specifically asked me to come for you. He said you might refuse, and he told me to insist that you'd be safe. If it's about trust, I can..." "It's not that," Lily said, her cheeks heating. "I just don't want to be a bother. I take the bus all the time." Across the street, a few passers-by paused to watch. Lily felt herself shrink under their curious gazes. The driver looked disappointed, but nodded politely. "Understood, miss." Before he rolled up the window, he handed her a sealed envelope with a calm, courteous gesture. Mr. Collins asked me to deliver this. He hopes you'll open it when you're ready. She stood in place, staring at the envelope, wondering if she should toss it or open it on the spot. With shaky hands, she slid a fingernail under the flap. Inside was a simple typed note. Lily, I know you'll think this is too much, but I want to help. I'll wait for you to trust me. Tucked behind the note was a voucher for free medical checkups and pharmacy discounts at a reputable clinic, valid for an entire year. Lily gasped, tears prickling her eyes. She had heard of that clinic. It was a subsidiary of Collins Enterprises, known for its advanced equipment and high fees. This voucher could significantly reduce costs for her mother's ongoing treatment. Shaken, Lily folded the note back into the envelope and pressed it to her chest. She glanced around at the darkening street, the hum of the city offering no answers to her swirling thoughts. One thing was certain. Everything she had assumed about Richard changed in that instant. The CEO with unlimited resources had chosen to approach her in secrecy, offering help that she desperately needed. As Lily slowly headed to the bus stop, the envelope clutched in her hand. She grappled with conflicting emotions, gratitude for the chance to ease her mother's pain, guilt for accepting aid from a stranger, and an unshakable confusion about why this powerful man was so invested in her life. Little did she know that discovering the true breadth of Lily's struggles would change both of their lives forever. Lily's alarm buzzed at 5 a.m., once again pulling her from a shallow sleep. She jolted awake, her pulse quickening as the weight of her responsibilities flooded back to her. The bills, the looming certification exam, and her mother's medications. She had fallen asleep, hunched over her desk, trying to calculate whether her paycheck could possibly stretch enough to cover everything. With stinging eyes, she pulled herself up, grabbed a fresh uniform, and swallowed the apprehension clenching her chest. After preparing a quick breakfast of 2 eggs and a thin slice of bread, Lily checked on her mother, who was still asleep on the couch, wrapped in layers of blankets. Her mother's breathing sounded shallow but steady. Lily adjusted the pillows and kissed her mother on the forehead, feeling the familiar knot of anxiety return. The nurses had advised her that with her mother's worsening condition, she might soon need to consider a more specialized facility or more aggressive treatments, all requiring resources Lily simply didn't have. Despite her constant worries, she tried to keep her spirits up. She brushed her hair into a neat ponytail, slipped into her scuffed white sneakers, and hurried out the door to catch her usual bus. At the bus stop, Lily stood with her arms folded tightly, trying to stay warm in the crisp morning air. She checked the time on her phone, nearly 6 a.m. She had a good 30 minutes before she needed to be at work, but she liked arriving early to handle any last-minute requests from the head nurse. While waiting, her eyes scanned the corner where the sleek black car had once appeared, a reminder of Richard. A part of her longed for his presence again, yet she berated herself for feeling that way. After all, Richard was just a stranger who had momentarily stepped into her life. Surely he had no reason to ride the bus again, especially if he was as affluent as his suit suggested. Besides, Lily had her own problems to solve and no time for daydreams. The bus rattled up to the curb, and Lily climbed aboard, ignoring the curious stares of a few fellow passengers. She could almost hear them thinking, "That's the girl who helped the man with no fare." No one spoke of it openly, but every now and then she sensed the ripple of rumor. Forcing herself not to dwell on it, her day demanded focus and fortitude, and she couldn't let anything distract her from her mother's well-being. Once she signed in and exchanged greetings with the staff, she immediately set about her tasks. First, she inventoried medication in Ward A, then checked vitals for 3 post-surgery patients. She hardly had time to breathe until mid-morning when she ducked into the nurse's lounge for a quick sip of water. No sooner had she leaned against a locker than Marie, one of the senior nurses, stepped in. "Lily," Marie began, her tone a hushed mix of curiosity and caution. "We heard you might be taking your mother to Redwood Clinic. Word travels fast around here, you know." Lily almost choked on her water. She had only told one friend about the appointment. "Yes, they called me with an appointment." "It's a long story," she said, trying to maintain her composure. Marie nodded sympathetically. "I'm happy for you. That clinic has incredible specialists. I just hope it won't break your wallet." She hesitated, then added, Also, I heard this is none of my business, so forgive me, but someone said a top figure at Collins Enterprises arranged this. Is that true? Lily's cheeks warmed under the fluorescent lights. She could sense Marie's unspoken question. Why would a powerful corporation single out an intern for such favor? It's complicated, Lily said, deciding to be honest, but not overly detailed. I helped someone from that company, and he wanted to return the kindness. Marie gently patted her arm. Well, dear, you've always worked so hard. If you get a bit of luck, that's nothing to feel guilty about. Just be careful. People around here might start whispering. Lily thanked her, feeling both gratitude for Marie's concern and a sting of caution. The last thing she wanted was for her colleagues to think she was using connections or seeking special treatment. Richard, meanwhile, sat in a conference room at Collins Enterprises headquarters, finalizing quarterly strategies with a team of executives. Charts and graphs filled the projector screen, detailing profits, philanthropic budgets, and new acquisitions. Richard appeared calm and collected, but inside, his mind drifted to Lily. He could practically see her at the hospital, her gentle dedication and reluctance to accept even the simplest gift. He couldn't deny that part of him wondered if Daniel was right, if Lily might see him as nothing but a financial lifeline. But his instincts rebelled against that thought. He glanced at the tall stack of documents awaiting his signature, multi-million-dollar deals and new expansions for Collins Enterprises, yet all he could focus on was the memory of Lily's hopeful yet wary expression. That evening, Lily returned home exhausted. The weight of endless responsibilities pressed down on her, but she was grateful to have a roof over her head and a mother who needed her. As she entered the apartment, she found her mother resting on the couch, her breathing more stable than before. Lily settled down beside her, feeling a mix of relief and anxiety. The upcoming appointment at Redwood loomed large in her mind. She still had to convince her mother to accept the help, but for now, she would focus on her nursing exam, the one thing she could control. Across town, Richard stared through a massive window overlooking the city's lights, his reflection staring back at him, a reflection he hardly recognized. He had decided to leave his wallet behind on purpose that morning, determined to blend in among the city's regular folk. Yet he hadn't expected the quiet compassion of a stranger named Lily. He wanted to see her again, to help her in some way, though she seemed fiercely independent. Richard had never felt so motivated by genuine admiration before. As the days passed, Lily tried to keep her spirits up despite the mounting pressure. Every time she calmed a frightened patient or comforted a worried family member, she was reminded of her purpose, but the worries about her mother's health and the financial burden loomed larger than ever. Then one day, as she was checking vital signs, a nurse approached her with an urgent expression. "Lily, they want to talk to you in the administrative office." Lily's heart sank, sensing that the scrutiny surrounding her situation was about to intensify. As she walked toward the office, her mind raced. Would they question her about the help she received? Would they see her as a liability instead of a devoted daughter? She steeled herself, determined to face whatever was coming. The morning light spilled into the modest apartment as Lily prepared to accompany her mother to the next appointment at Redwood Medical Clinic. They moved slowly down the stairs, Lily's arms steady around her mother's waist, though her mother still tired easily. The new treatment protocol at Redwood had managed to keep her breathing under better control, but each step brought a quiet worry that Lily tried hard to hide. When their taxi pulled up to Redwood's gleaming glass facade, Lily felt a mix of hope and anxiety. She paid the fare with a portion of her internship paycheck, newly freed up since Richard's intervention had covered the rent. Relief at no longer juggling overdue bills sat uneasily alongside the guilt of depending on his help. Still, she had bigger concerns, ensuring her mother made it through today's round of tests and consultations. Inside the clinic's reception area, a friendly nurse led them into a private examination room. Dr. Miller arrived shortly afterward, offering a warm smile. "Welcome back," she said, folding her arms across her crisp white coat. "We'll do a quick check on your mother's vitals, then see how the medication adjustments are working. Any changes at home since last time?" Lily's mother coughed lightly and shook her head. "No major changes, I suppose. Breathing's a bit better, but I get dizzy spells sometimes." Lily stood at the foot of the exam bed, hands knitted together, and added, "Her appetite is still inconsistent. Some days she can eat a full meal, others she barely touches her plate." Dr. Miller nodded, making notes on a tablet. We'll run new blood work and possibly a lung scan. The dizziness might be linked to how her body is absorbing the medication. Don't worry, I've seen this pattern before. We'll make sure to adjust if needed. The typical hum of medical machinery and quiet conversation filled the room. A lab technician arrived to draw a blood sample, and Lily helped her mother roll up a sleeve. Even though she was only an intern at another facility, she slipped easily into caregiver mode, soothing her mother with quiet words. In these gentle moments, Lily's anxieties about her own life receded, replaced by a singular focus, helping her mother heal. Once the technician left, Lily's mother sank against the pillow, catching her breath. Dr. Miller gave Lily a quick nod, signaling for her to step out into the hallway. Your mother is stable, she reassured, leading Lily into her office. I want to keep her for a few hours to run those scans and monitor any side effects. In the meantime, we should talk about next steps. A hint of dread flickered in Lily's chest. All right, she replied, steeling herself for the conversation. Dr. Miller continued. The good news is that her lungs show partial improvement. The medication is holding certain issues at bay, but her autoimmune markers remain high. We may need to consider specialized infusion therapy. Lily's mind jumped to costs. That means an even higher bill, right? She asked, her voice tinged with concern. Dr. Miller nodded sympathetically. We can keep some costs in check through Redwood's foundation, but infusion therapy is expensive. We'll have a better sense of the total after a consult with our immunology team. Perhaps your benefactor. I don't want to rely on him for everything, Lily blurted before she could stop herself. She caught Dr. Miller's raised brow and swallowed hard. I'm sorry, I just mean I don't want to keep leaning on the same source of funding. I'm trying to find other ways to manage. Dr. Miller gave a reassuring smile. Understood. Let's gather the data first. We do have payment plans, and Redwood can sometimes secure grants. Your mother has a real chance to improve with the right treatment. Don't lose hope. Lily nodded, absorbing Dr. Miller's words. She wanted to thank her, but found her throat clogging with emotion. Finally, she managed a quiet, thank you, doctor, before stepping back into her mother's room. Are you okay if I leave you here for a bit? Lily asked gently, brushing her mother's forehead. Her mother's eyes fluttered open. I'll be fine. The nurses are kind, and I'm not going anywhere until they finish their tests. A faint smile curved her lips. Besides, we can't risk your job. Don't fuss over me too much. Lily forced a playful scoff. No such thing as too much fuss. She helped settle the blankets, kissed her mother's cheek, and promised to return after her shift. Outside, Lily was greeted by bright midday sunshine as she called a taxi, fiddling with her phone while she waited. She had already spent a chunk of time away from the hospital, hoping her supervisor wouldn't question it any further, especially after the recent scrutiny. As the taxi rolled up, Lily's phone buzzed with a text from Carmen, the reporter. I heard Redwood might discharge her mom tonight. Perfect for a small interview. Maybe we can finalize a time. Lily shut her eyes, frustration welling up inside her. She typed a quick response. Not sure. This is personal. I'll let you know if we're interested. She powered the phone off, deciding not to engage further. The last thing she needed was media attention fueling the rumors swirling around her. When she arrived at the hospital, she found the atmosphere more charged than usual. Nurses and interns bustled about, some wearing tense expressions. She noticed Grace frowning at a bulletin board cluttered with new memos. Grace, what's going on? Lily asked, setting her tote down. Grace gave a tired shrug. Apparently, a rumor circulated that we might be under a staffing audit next week. Administration wants to ensure no inappropriate relationships or conflicts exist. Lily's heart sank. Do you think it's connected to me? Grace shook her head, though her eyes flicked with concern. Hard to say. The hospital's finances and staffing are always under scrutiny, especially with the expansions and budget cuts. But you know your name will come up. Someone's definitely pushing this narrative about you. I just don't know who. Determined to keep her head down, Lily changed into her scrubs and dove into her shift, tending to patients with her usual diligence. She focused on her tasks, hoping her professionalism might overshadow any rumors. By the end of her shift, she changed clothes and headed out, determined to reach her study group on time. As she left the hospital by a side exit, avoiding the main lobby, she craved a shred of anonymity. Suddenly, her phone buzzed with Richard's text. "I'm relieved about your mom's discharge. Sorry about the audit stress. If you need any letter of support from me or Redwood to prove you did nothing wrong, I'm here." Tears stung Lily's eyes at his kind words. She typed back a brief reply, struggling to keep it positive. "I'm okay. Mom was discharged last night. Stable for now. We had a big meeting about an audit at the hospital. Stressful, but I'll manage. Thanks for checking." No sooner had she pressed send than a figure stepped out from behind a nearby pillar. It was Carmen, the reporter, camera bag slung over her shoulder. Lily froze, startled. "Carmen," she said, disbelief lacing her voice. "What are you doing here?" Carmen held up her hands in a placating gesture. "I'm not stalking you, I promise. I had leads on a separate story at this hospital. I saw you leaving and thought I'd say hi. Any chance you reconsidered an interview?" Lily felt her heart race. "Look, I told you my situation is delicate. The hospital's already investigating. If I do an interview, it could cause more harm than good." Carmen nodded, though her expression held a hint of professional persistence. "I get it, but Redwood's management is open to discussing positive patient outcomes. If we frame this as your mother's success story, it might overshadow the negative rumors. Could it help you with your hospital superiors, showing them you're just a devoted daughter?" Lily hesitated, torn. Carmen's reasoning tapped into a faint hope. Maybe presenting a clean, uplifting story could counter the suspicion. But her gut screamed caution. "I can't say yes, not yet," she replied firmly. Carmen sighed, glancing at her watch. "All right, but time is short. I'm meeting Redwood's PR liaison in 2 days, and if you're not on board, they might pick another patient to feature. I'd hate for you and your mother to miss out on some supportive spotlight." Before Lily could respond, Carmen pressed a business card into her hand. "If you change your mind, call me. This could be your chance to set the record straight." As Carmen slipped away, Lily felt cornered yet again. The card's glossy finish glinted in the afternoon sun, mocking her uncertainty. She shoved it into her bag and hurried off to the bus stop, her pulse pounding. Every choice felt like a trap: speak publicly and risk fueling the rumor mill, or stay silent and watch the negativity fester. Meanwhile, Daniel learned through his channels that Lily was preparing to do an interview in coordination with Redwood's PR. A triumphant smirk crossed his face as he recognized the opportunity to spin the narrative in a way that cast Lily as reliant on Richard's wealth, overshadowed by scandal. In contrast, Richard sensed Daniel's interference quietly reaching out to Redwood's top executives, insisting they keep the interview under tight control. He wanted to emphasize Lily's mother's improvement and Redwood's charitable mission, focusing on Lily's dedication as a caregiver and nursing student. As the stage was set for the public showdown, Lily felt a mix of fear and determination. Today was a chance to reclaim her narrative, to prove her integrity and dedication to her mother's health, but the stakes were higher than ever.